Hey, this is Johnny Cologne, here with another episode of Master Craftsmen. On this episode, we're learning about elevators. Watch us. Next time you meet somebody in the construction trade, shake their hand and tell them that you are in awe. Why? Because it's those construction trades that make modern life possible. Just think of how the elevator changed the world. Buildings now grow taller and people with disabilities and the rest of us can effortlessly navigate upper floors. This episode of Master Craftsmen follows Island Elevator as they install a new elevator in a commercial building. After seeing what goes into building a functioning and safe elevator, you'll never look at them the same, or ride them without a sense of wonder. We joined Island Elevator once the elevator shaft was already framed, according to the architectural drawings. They were installing the rail brackets and the rail as straight and accurately as possible in the elevator shaft. These rails are just like those of a train, except these run vertically up in the air. If the rails are not perfectly aligned, the elevator can go off the track and people can get hurt. Precision matters. A professionally installed elevator starts with precisely installed rail brackets. Every measurement needed to install every part on the elevator can be followed directly back to the bracket placement. Installation begins with the spot brackets at the topmost part of the shaft. Technicians drop a plumb line to the elevator pit in order to accurately line the lower brackets with the spots up top. This plumb line is a steel wire with a 12-pound weight on the end to mitigate sway over long distances. Rail brackets must be perfectly straight, leveled, and aligned to a tolerance of 1/64 of an inch. Every aspect of the installation depends on perfect measurement, perfect square, perfect level position, and we mean absolutely perfect.
This is between rail brackets, 6'10½", spot on.
They repeat the installation of the rail brackets from floor to floor and side to side until all the brackets are in place. Once the brackets are in place, the guide rails are attached. Guide rails are carefully guided in place with a 1-ton chain hoist. Communication is key for safe installation. Guide shoes steady the elevator as it travels up and down the shaft. Upward motion is achieved when oil is pumped into the hydraulic pistons, causing them to raise. The elevator lowers by releasing the oil pressure in the system. Sensors monitor and ensure the pistons on both sides of the shaft are moving in sync. The selector is a device that monitors floor position. It reads carefully position magnets on the selector tape and commands the elevator to stop in a precise alignment with each floor. During this phase, the computerized motion control system is installed. Control jumpers that bypass safety devices allow the installation of a temporary run box to move the platform while under construction. The car sling installation constitutes the platform, stiles, crossheads, and bolster channel. Its rugged steel construction is the foundation on which the rest of the cabin passengers will ride. Our basic elevator template is now in place. Hey, I'm here with Chris Gutkiss, president of Island Elevator. Chris, your tradesmen were in here installing rails and brackets in the elevator earlier. Tell me why was that a critical process?
The rails and brackets are imperative. They're the foundation of the entire elevator installation. If we don't put the brackets on properly, then the rails will be off, and every other item in the entire installation is set to the rail distance, and those items will be off also. So precision is important. They have to go ahead and make sure that these rail brackets between top to bottom of the shaft, no matter how high it is only off by no more than plus or minus 1/64 of an inch. This requires an extraordinary amount of precision and skill in order to make sure that no detail is lost while we try to install these items. And then the brackets will lead us into the rails, which will lead us into the rest of the installation. It's the foundation of everything that the elevator is built on, comes back to the rails.
Today you installed the car sling as you prepare for temporary operations. Tell me more about that process.
Well, the car sling comes in pieces, and it has to be put in both square and plumb in order for us to marry it up to the previously installed pistons and rails. If this process is not done perfectly, then we're not going to be able to have a properly and safely running elevator as we go up and down the shaft in order to continue along our installation.
So now you've installed the rails, the platform, and the sling. What comes next?
We can start setting our entrances. That's the doors that you would walk through when you enter an elevator under normal circumstances. And all of these entrances will have to be plumb and square to the entire installation and be able to be measurable within 1/4 of an inch back to the rails. Following that, we'll install the cab and following that will be electrical work and programming of the elevator in order to get us to permanent operation.
Sounds like there's a lot that goes on into installing an elevator. How many different trades and tradesmen do you use just for this job?
It's hard for me to even pinpoint. There's the masons, there's the steel workers, there's the steam fitters, there's the fire service vendors, there's the electricians that play a big role in this. Part of being an elevator installer, elevator constructor is knowing how to work within a team, because we're going to have to be able to communicate very specific clearances and tolerances in order to make sure that this elevator fits in the shaft and works in conjunction with the other building construction systems.
Great information, Chris. As installation continues, precise measurements are taken to install the struts. The struts guide the whole door installation at each landing. Brackets are installed to hold the struts securely in place. When completed, a full-speed elevator will zip past the entrances at less than an inch, so they must be installed perfectly to avoid a collision. Imperfect struts lead to poorly installed entrances and doors that don't work. The hoistway sill is placed at the entrance on each level. The hoistway sill and the cab sill must be in perfect alignment. Marks are made to prepare for the installation of the door bucks. A header is placed along the top of the entrance at each landing, completing the frame of the door buck, which can now be installed. It is secured both top and bottom, as always, to strict and exact specifications. Now it's time to install the landing door. The door rides on the landing header, resting on smooth rolling casters. It is kept in a track with the hoist sill using guides known as gibs. Know how perfectly level and aligned the header and the hoist sill are. The door hangs and moves with ease. The assembly of the cab begins by loosely joining the side and rear interior walls as they sit on top of the platform. Next, our team unpacks the dome and ceiling units to finish off the top of the elevator. These components contain electronics that will be wired into the rest of the system later to function properly. Before the dome is attached, the strike column and return column are installed and the front panels of the car are assembled. This includes the car operating station that contains the car's vital electronic command and control assembly. It houses a computer interface, auxiliary control key switches, fire service operation, and call registration buttons. Once that is in place, the dome is attached. The door control and motor drive unit resides atop the front of the cab and is joined to the front walls and the dome to structurally tie all panels together, as always to precise measurements and specifications. With cab assembly complete, all parts are tightened, double-checked for square, and anchored to the platform in their final positions. The cab door is now moved into place, attached to the door operator, and adjustments are made until the door is running smoothly. Gibs will keep the cab door in line with the cab sill. The door clutch assembly is attached to the cab door and adjusted. As the cab moves between floors, the clutch will engage the outer doors on each landing and cause them to open and close in sync with the cab door when driven by the door operator. The mechanism to lock and unlock the door at each floor is installed and adjusted for proper operation. Sensors to reopen the door when instructed are installed. The electrical wiring on top of the elevator for the lights and ventilation fan is completed. There are two types of wiring involved in elevator installation: the higher voltage electric wiring that powers the various electric systems, and the complex low voltage signal wiring that runs between the computer and the various devices and sensors. Wiring of the computer and control systems runs along a cable comprised of hundreds of wires, and completing these connections now make up the bulk of what's left on the job. The crew will field wire all remaining car control systems, remove some of the jumpers that override computer control, and finally remove the run box that has been controlling the elevator for most of this installation. The crew now controls the elevator from the inspection station on top of the car. As the name indicates, they will do a complete inspection of all the elements on the inside of the shaft, verifying code-compliant operation as they go. Minor adjustments with door latches and sensors are corrected or repaired before moving on. After controller wiring is completed, one team member will operate the elevator from the control room while another checks elevator speeds. They fine-tune the speeds by adjusting the valves which control the rate at which hydraulic fluid is allowed into and out of the pistons until the speed is compliant with engineer specifications and elevator code. The remainder of the field wiring for the control systems is completed. Every button, switch, and endpoint in the system is now connected. There are literally hundreds. Wiring at the control and microprocessor, wiring for all the buttons and switches at the various floor landing call stations, and of course, all the connections to the control board on the car. Wires fixed to the non-moving systems are carried through solid conduit, while wires that move with the car are carried via traveling cable. Once all the wiring is completed, the computer is programmed with various command and control protocols required for the proper operation. The elevator is turned over to full automatic control. Finally, every button, switch, and system on this elevator install is tested to make sure it is functioning properly to code. Door safety sensors are checked to make sure they open if the light curtain is interrupted. Fire safety systems are checked to make sure that the elevator recalls to the proper floors in case of an emergency. Once all of this is confirmed and any discrepancies corrected, the elevator is essentially completed. All that's really left is some tidying up and painting, completing a professional installation. Hey, the elevator is now complete. We're back here with Chris from Island Elevator. How's it going, Chris?
Very good, thank you.
Okay, we just witnessed this project being completed. But before your client could use it, he had to pass an inspection. Tell us more about that process.
Well, the first step is to make sure that we schedule the inspection with a certified elevator inspector that's recognized by the authority having jurisdiction in this particular municipality. That elevator inspector is going to step through and conduct a over 150-point test that's going to include every single electronic device, every single safety device, and every single scenario that may or may not encounter the elevator plus the passenger over the course or the lifetime of the equipment. To include that is a full load weight test to make sure that the elevator not only stops at the floor, but floor level doors open and people can exit and enter safely.
We saw all kinds of skills go into completing this project. How did those skills affect the passing of the inspection?
Well, obviously, if everything doesn't go in correctly, then we don't have a working elevator to even inspect. Our carpentry skills make sure that everything goes in straight, plumb, and level. Our electronic skills and wiring skills make sure that all of the switches, circuits, and buttons work as they were intended to. Plumbing, make sure that a leak-free transfer of that high-pressure system goes from the power unit into the pistons, carrying the elevator up. And computer programming skills to train the brain of the elevator and have it act as we expect it to on a daily basis.
Well, thanks a lot for having us, Chris.
Well, thanks a lot for coming.
Great job. We have seen some highly skilled craftsmen on this episode. Their skill and training make modern life possible, not to mention safe. Join us next time when we highlight many other skilled craftsmen and how their skills make our lives better. I'm Johnny Canone, and I'll see you next time on NASA Craftsman. Until then, let's keep building.
Master Craftsman is sponsored by Percy Jobs and Careers. And here's why. Globalization and technology have caused high levels of income inequality. Unskilled workers suffered the most. Lack of skills is the primary cause of income inequality and is disrupting the construction industry. Spending on infrastructure is surging, but lack of skilled workers has hindered growth, pushed projects over budget and schedule, jeopardizing quality and safety. Apprenticeship training transforms unskilled workers into skilled craftspersons. Yet in the recent decades, such on-the-job training coupled with related classroom instruction has been in decline. Apprenticeship training will reverse widening income inequality and create a ready pool of skilled tradespersons. At Percy, we can train thousands of apprentices by using workplace safety programs on public works projects in a way that does not increase existing budgets or burden taxpayers. It's just plain good business. We believe in the American worker. Find out more at percy.org.